Hey everyone, welcome back to Deeper Roots. Life is difficult as it is already. We have to make countless decisions a day, and a lot of the time these decisions are ones that are very difficult to make. Now we bring our own social lives into the mix, and that just makes everything that much more complicated. People are social beings, and because of that, choosing the right friends is so important. The Bible recognizes this and has given so much wisdom on how we can manage our own social circles. One of the things that you hear a lot about Christians and friendships is that Christians can't or shouldn't have non-Christian friends. Now, that's a bit of a generalization, but that's essentially the question that was submitted to us. It seemed that two people actually had very similar questions, so I'll read them here. Can a Christian be friends with a non-Christian? Are you truly friends with them if you're not actively trying to save them? The second person asked, what are your friendships like with non-Christian people? How are they different from Christian friends, and can you even have non-Christian friends? This week we're actually able to have John Moore on as our guest. Mr. John is the director of the Wolf Mountain Christian Camp, which is where our church's youth group goes every summer to give our teens a week away from the hustle and bustle of the Bay Area. Wolf Mountain serves the Northern Californian region and dedicates itself to be a place of decision for the teens. It isn't a church, but it's a home missions ministry that uses the unique aspects of camp to reach out to young people, strengthen families, and to serve local churches. You can learn more about Wolf Mountain and also find out how you can support them and their ministry by going to their website, www.wolfmountain.org. If you like this podcast and you want to see it grow, you can also visit our website, www.ibbvn.org/deeperroots. There you can see where we publish our podcasts, and also you can submit your own question using the form that is on that page. All the questions that we've talked about so far have been listener submitted, so don't be shy and submit one for yourself if you have the curiosity to learn. It's anonymous, it's free, and it can really be a great blessing to have someone talk about your question through a biblical lens. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get to the conversation. Welcome back to Deeper Roots. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We have Pastor Luis and Esther here as usual, but we also have a longtime friend of mine and a counselor and one of the people that I look up to, Mr. John. He's from Wolf Mountain, and John Moore has been a fantastic example for me in trying to lead my own spiritual life, and I'm super happy that he's able to join us in this episode today. Today's question came from another listener. The question is, can a Christian be friends with a non-Christian? Are you truly friends if you're not actively trying to save them? Another person actually asked a very similar question. I'm going to read it here as well. What are your friendships like with non-Christian people? How are they different from your Christian friends? And can you have non-Christian friends? Basically the same question, but there's a little bit of different nuances between the two questions. And I want to go ahead and pass it off to Pastor.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Like you said, we're very blessed to have the opportunity to have Brother John with us. He is the director of Wolf Mountain Camps. We've been coming up here for every single year ever since he started, but I think except one last year because of COVID. But it's a huge blessing, and we want to thank you for your ministry, for the way you've ministered to our teens. And part of this ministry as well is just a fruit of what you guys do here at the camp. So we want to appreciate you and thank you for your work. So we're going to let Brother John lead the question today. We're all going to contribute off and on. But so what are your opening thoughts, Brother John? Or maybe you want to say a little bit about the ministry here too as well, because people do hear it, and we want to encourage people to know that there's a good Christian camp up here where they can send their young people when they're younger, before they become adults like us, but get grounded in the Word.
Maybe not more mature.
I mean, we're still coming to the camp. No one stopped us.
We find a way to keep coming.
So, well, anytime that somebody asks me a question, I want to make sure that we're on the same page. Mm-hmm. So you've got to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So when I hear a question that involves words that need to be defined, that's where I like to start. Like, really, okay, what do you mean by a friend? You know, because there's so many different words that we use for friends. Like an acquaintance, you know, I'll hear my girls are 7 and 8, and they'll have campers who come, and they're here for a science camp, and they play racquetball with my girls, and my girls come back and like, Daddy, that's my friend Maggie over there. It's like, well, do you know anything about her? You know, so she's a nice girl to play with, but she's not really your friend. She's an acquaintance. And so I think figuring out what do we mean by friends. Like if we're asking the question, what can a Christian have a friendship with an unsaved person? We need to define what a friend is.
Exactly.
And really with that is, what is the purpose of a friend? And you know, I think those are different than acquaintances or people we know with that. So I would just look primarily if I was sitting down with a teenager asking me this question. In fact, just last week I had somebody said, Mr. John, have you ever had to break up with a friend before? And I was like, okay, how do you mean friend? Like,
Exactly.
This is another guy that you hang out with, or this is actually your girlfriend and you just, you know, don't want to be emotionally attached? He's like, no, it's a guy I hang out with. I'm like, okay, different thing there. And just even... I go to what the Bible would say about what your friends are supposed to be. You know, all throughout the book of Proverbs, we see warnings about friends and that you're going to become like your friends. And then I see principles that God gives to Christians that say our main goal in life is to become, you know, changed into the glorious image of His Son. To whatsoever, whether they're for you to eat or drink, do, you know, all to the glory of God. And at camp, we use the phrase that my goal is to bring people to the place of glorifying God in their lives, and that's what I look at as a friend. It's going to be somebody who does affect me, like Proverbs says, but the goal in that affecting is they want better for me. They want me to actually become more like Christ.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I would look at a question like this and say, I mean, I know there's different nuances of relationship and you know, family members or friends too, but I would look and say the people I want as friends in my life are the people that are going to help me come better to the place of glorifying God in my life. So I'm going to be pretty careful about who I choose to use that word friend with, because I do put a lot of weight on it. God puts a lot of weight on it. And there's a lot of warning, especially in the book of Proverbs, but you can see it through like Absalom and some of the guys he had around him. Those friends that you get that just enforce your bad behavior, I mean, a lot of they led to Absalom's death. You know, and the Bible talks about people who make decisions that lead to their own destruction. I don't really want to be close to one of those guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's I think for teenagers, you know, like you said, a lot of them are sort of trying to see, can I still be part of friends with certain so and so, what they know in the back of their heads that there's bad influences to them. And but I guess maybe also looking at it from the other side, what about maybe a good Christian teenager who's trying to know where the limit is to as far as our relationships with unbelievers? Because I think there's also the extreme where sometimes, you know, you don't go out there and actually try to influence the world we're living in, you know. And like you said, I think that it starts there with the definition of what a friend is. And like you said, maybe we should discuss that first. I don't know, Esther, if you wanted to contribute. But is there what should an unbeliever be for a Christian? Can there be friends that are unbelievers, or should they just be acquaintances?
I think in my experience, they've been, you know, as Brother John was saying, more acquaintances more than anything. I found in my experience in the past that when I do get close to a closer relationship or friendship, I should say, with an unbeliever, I always have to explain myself. Like, why don't I do this? And why do I do that? And it's because we don't have the same values and belief systems. And that can become boring. That can be challenging as well. And it can also put, not, you know, depending on how strong your faith is, doubt, right, in your faith, and thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And when we're young, we're easily influenced if we don't have a strong fundamental, you know, basics of our beliefs in us. So I believe you can have acquaintances, but when it comes to deep, you know, like if I have to make a huge decision that's going to affect me, I'm not going to go to my acquaintances. I'm going to go to my friends who know the Lord, who want the best, to the point that they might have to say, hey, Esther, that's wrong. Or, hey, Esther, you know, I think you should, you know, that's that's where I think people really need to think about when it comes to what friends you go to for things, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to unbelievers, like you said, we should keep acquaintances, but we should also have some kind of evangelistic
Correct.
outreach. Because I think that's also, I've seen both sides, where like you have the teenager that wants to be worldly, and that's why they really prefer to just be with their worldly friends or acquaintances. And then there's the young person that really sincerely wants to know that line. You know, should I not talk to unbelievers?
Yeah.
Should I separate them from to the point that, hey, don't talk to me, I'm a Christian? Or what is that limit? So what would you say, Brother John, as far as what should our relationship be with an unbeliever as far as evangelism and trying to reach them for Christ?
Yeah, I think in the world we live in, we like labels because labels kind of make things clear for us. And I've heard people talk about, well, those are my work friends or those are my school friends. And what we're acknowledging is there are certain common areas that we're going to overlap in. We've had a chance to spend quite a bit of time in the hospital and working with our doctors day in and day out with some of my daughter's treatments and stuff. I feel like we grew to a friendship and a mutual admiration of each other, but those weren't people that I was letting influence my daily decision. Like Esther said, like those are going to affect the way I think. And so I kind of want to have a clear line in my mind of these are the people who I'm letting me influence, and then now these are the people I'm actually seeking to influence. So I can have my school friends, and at school, I want to be a good testimony to them. I want to show them that, hey, you know what? A Christian is different in the way they respond to the teachers, to authority, even the diligence that I have in my work. And I can tell you why that is different, because I do everything for the glory of God. I do my work because God asks me to do my work. But then my limit in my mind would say, hey, at school, I'm going to be witnessing to you. I'm going to show you the love of God. But I'm probably not going to invite you to a spot that I know, like I can invite you to a spot that I control the environment. Why don't you come to church with me? Why don't you come to youth group with me? But I'm not going to bring you to the spot where it's like, hey, why don't you come into the place where I'm making decisions with my family, or where I'm, you know, I want to be the one to control the influence. And so by putting in my mind a label that's like, oh, this is my work friend, I'm going to be witnessing to you at work. I'm going to be witnessing to you at school, at band practice, at wherever I'm at. That is my goal, and that is, in a way, my mission field, because it's a controlled environment. Versus saying, why don't you just live life with me? Because you're going to have a lot more influence on me when we're doing a sleepover and we're trying to figure out what movie we want to watch. And you're like, hey, we should watch this one. It's really good. And now you're like, oh, I'm in a tough spot. This person's at my house.
Exactly.
And now I'm, oh, okay, this is a little bit more real. And I know for myself, I had some friends through junior high who they introduced me to a lot of things that I wish now, even 25 years later, that I have never seen in my life. And it was all because we were trying to do life together, and their influence in their environment actually won out over what I was hoping to be able to do. And like you said, Pastor, a strong Christian, strong testimony relationship. And so if you can fight on the home turf, if you can control even the places and what you can do together, I think you have a better chance of being a witness.
And it makes me think also of just the importance of like what's being done here at camp, the importance of ministry, youth ministry back home. Because also we were talking with a mother here that's at camp, and that she is so happy to have her daughter here, but that they don't really have a youth group right now going on at church. And she worries because she was telling us how her daughter didn't want to come because she wants to just hang out with her quote unquote friends, which are not unbelievers. And we were just talking about the importance with her about getting her into a youth group, because if you provide an environment where they can connect, hopefully with other Christians that will also want to encourage them in their spiritual walk, it helps them to not have as much of a deep temptation to want to find unbelieving friends. And I think that's what's great about camp, and just having the opportunity for them to connect and hopefully find someone to not only help them to walk better in their spiritual lives, but hopefully a real friend that that will help them to get closer to God and each other. And the same thing with youth ministry back home, because I think it's the more activities we provide. Sometimes as a youth pastor, I used to be a youth pastor, now I'm the pastor of the church. We were criticized sometimes at some point because why do you always do activities? Why always pizza night? Why this? You guys just it's not that I don't have any
money into the furnace.
I know.
You never see, you feel like you're never going to see the fruit of all of this, all the extra pizza.
Yeah, you're
exactly.
paying to hang out. That's really what you're doing.
Paying to hang out and games and stuff. And what does that have to do with the Bible? It's an opportunity for them to create fellowship, to be not only between themselves but also between the leaders and the pastor, the youth leaders and them. Because once you earn their trust, you open up their hearts to be able to receive the truth as well that you have to say to them. But I think that's important as well, to be able to provide those the opportunity to create good godly friendships, because sometimes we don't.
I think that that actually ties into something that actually happened last night. We actually were able to have Mr. John on because we're actually at Wolf Mountain recording right now. But last night, around definitely before the lights out time, Mr. John, we the cabin, we wanted to go, they wanted to go get water, they wanted to go get Powerade before we all went to sleep. And okay, so how about we all just make it a little trip? And they went to go get Powerade, and then we had the devotional outside. But that, along with the stars talk that you had on Tuesday,
Tuesday.
And then along with so many other things that are happening across the camp, this is how memories are made. And this is these memories with people these kids can have fun, and they can make great friendships that will last a lifetime, all without having to pick up a cigarette or having to pick up a drink, without having to watch a dirty or raunchy movie, or having to make a poor decision in their lives.
Yeah.
They can make a decision over a bad machine that doesn't give them the change back.
And the friends will help them not get mad and hurt the machine.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we were 50 cents short.
The one thing that came to mind when Mr. John and even Pastor were saying, actually, Mr. Jeremiah said this last night. I think it was the afternoon or evening service, where he's talking about the lies of the devil. And the one that I want to say, it was great preaching. The one that came to mind was, you think you're strong enough on your own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's a lie. When you think, oh, but I can bring them to, I'm going to, convert them, or they're going to become a Christian. I'm going to be the influence. I just want to remind all of us, I think all of us maybe in this room have experienced the opposite of that, and the reality of you're not strong on your own when it comes to stuff like that.
And I think maybe we should mention that too, because maybe some of our listeners are also thinking that direction, where the person, their friend, they're interested is actually someone they're romantically interested in them. And I think the Bible's clear on that we should not be unequally yoked with the unbeliever. And that's very important when it comes to this, because sometimes some people or some young people might be thinking that way. I'll make them Christian. And that's not it. You can be an acquaintance, like Brother John said, and try to share the gospel and stuff. But if you fall in love with someone that's unbelieving to begin with, what was it that you fell in love with?
Right.
Because if it's not Christ in them, then it's something else. That's not going to be a good solid base for your spiritual lives together, or lack of.
There's actually a little bit of that in also people who are even in church. We actually Mr. Jeremiah addressed this specifically when he mentioned it multiple times. Even the people at the Christian school, the leaders of the Christian school weren't acting Christian, or maybe the people around you are even at camp are telling you not to make the decisions you want to make at camp, right? I've actually had dealt with this experience twice in my life. I think you all know of those experiences, but people who go to church and then this person, in my mind I would think this person's good, this person they go to church and they're fine. But then by the time I get to a point where I have a deeper relationship with this person, it doesn't, the fruits that I thought I saw were rotten in the middle. I didn't get back what I had expected. And so it's important to take that time to not only look at and see what it is you like, or what it is that you love about this person, and just see if you can unravel this person a little bit more before deciding like, oh, this person's going to be my friend.
Yeah.
And or listening to your adults around you who give you advice, because that's the other thing. Because, you know, as counselors, as director, as pastor, as a leader, that's part of our job as well, to say, hey, I'm seeing this, what's going on, and just, you know, helping and supporting and guiding a little bit and making you think about the choices that you're making regarding that.
Yeah.
That's
so true.
It's very true, because when it comes to wanting to to look for a mate, let's say you're single, you're looking for a mate, sometimes I think we use that term, you said labels, and I think that's a great thing to talk about, because today we use the label as well, he's a Christian. But what does it really mean that he's a Christian? Because like I said, it's better just to say, does he truly know Christ, and does he love Christ more than you? Right. Especially when it comes to a girl, you want a guy that will honor God more than he will honor you. He will honor God and love God more, and that's beyond just having the label of Christian because you go to church. Because a lot of people just think, oh, he goes to church, he must be a Christian. And no, there's a lot of
it's so easy. It's so easy to put labels on people. You don't even realize it. My dad has a saying, and I think it's a common phrase anywhere, but like if he looked like a duck and he walked like a duck and he quacked like a duck, he's probably a duck. And that's just to say, like, if this person acts like a non-Christian, and this person talks like a non-Christian, if this person walks like a non-Christian, dresses like a non-Christian, but they say they go to church, or they say that they are Christian, where is that fruit? Where is that evidence of their lives? Like, you can say like, oh, they go to church, they're Christian, they're okay to be around, but where's the proof of that? That person might be the same non-Christian friend that's going to show you the raunchy movie, or show you the foul magazines. I know that's not what it is nowadays, but that's the example that I've been told whenever I've been growing up, like those magazines. But like taking you to malicious websites is just that crowd, and it doesn't help a Christian to associate themselves with someone who has that much influence over their lives, especially when it's like, let's go hang out in a place where I can't really control the influence, like Mr. John said. Yeah,
you just get overrun in the moment, and that's why I like to control environments as much as I can. So anytime someone's like, hey, Mr. John, can we talk? Can we have a counseling situation or something? I always know where I want to meet, and it's never like the place that they want. It's like, no, actually, let's go meet over here. Oh, really? Because there's just something about it that I just want to know that I'm not going to get really surprised by something, and if I'm being the testimony that I am, I'm doing that all the time. And I got to look for open doors in that friendship. Again, whether it's a school friend, whether it's, I don't need to put myself, I'm going to go to this party because I know they're going to be there on Friday night, and, maybe I can witness to them. Well, that's not going to happen. No. That's just, that's not your environment. You're not going to be the one who's like, hey, can we turn the music down so I can talk to you about Jesus? That's, realistically. And and
that is to say, like, this isn't something that just like Christians do, or just Christians should think about. Like, this is something that everyone does inherently. Like, everyone wants to be in a place, so like in a location with the energy where they can control the influence. Everyone does it, whether it is subconsciously or consciously.
It makes me think, like, right now I'm playing softball again, and those are opportunities for me. Obviously, I'd like to do it. I'm not gonna lie, I love softball. I've told my deacons, please don't think I'm leaving the ministry. It's part of the ministry. I need to take care of myself, and it's something that helps to distress me. But at the same time, I'm conscious that there's a controlled environment where I can play and share in a sport with unbelievers, and be able to be that influence in a place where I know we can share something that's not sinful, and that they're going to hopefully see the difference in the way I play, my attitude, the words I use. I'm not going to swear, although the umpires don't let them anybody swear. They throw them out. But it's a good opportunity. And I think for me, that's personally, I've taken that on. I'm playing on 2 teams. In the Pleasanton one, there's actually 2 believers. So it's funny because one's a deacon and the other one's just a Christian as well. But it's a blessing to get to know each other and just say, hey, well, let's be light. Let's be an influence in this team, and just be able to share, and that's a good way to be an influence to your acquaintances.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Like, as we live life, you talked about salt and light, you know. I mean, we're supposed to have contact with the world. We're supposed to be distinct from the world. But that does mean we're there. Like, we build friendships based on common interests and mutual, like Derek said, memories that we had from camp and things like that. Like, that's what we built. We have to experience things with people. You know, we can't just go to a monastery and just disappear from the world. Like, we are going to find people who are genuinely enjoyable. Like, we are going to really love spending time around them, and they need Christ. And I can still enjoy playing sports with them. I can still go down to the Y and work out with them. I can still have a relationship with them. I think I just have to be mindful of it. It's not that every time I talk to them, I want to sit and talk down. Even at camp this week, you know, counseling with the guys and stuff. There's one little guy here, and I won't use his name, but like, our goal in the first couple of days is to find out where everybody's at spiritually. So I sat down with him and I was asking him some questions. He actually said something that caused me to say, oh, well, now let's talk about that. And but if every time I sit down with him, I say, okay, so I just need to clarify, like, how do you believe that you can die and go to heaven? Because what you're telling me is not in line with the Bible. There's going to be no conversation. He actually avoids me. He got up and moved from a meal because he was just like, I don't want to talk about spiritual things. So he left my table. Well, that's not a relationship. I can't get a chance to witness to him. We use the phrase, I need to build the bridge of like so that it can handle the weight of love. So those guys that are in that sports league with me, those guys who I hang out with at camp, we have to find common interests that we can just enjoy. You know, sometimes it's video games, sometimes it's sports, whatever. But as we get to know each other, I should have an intention that I'm doing that for the purpose to build that weight of love so that I can look at them one day and say, hey, listen, can I ask you a question that's more important than video games? Can I ask you a question that's way more important than what softball league we're going to win? Where are you going to spend your eternity? Now, again, I may not start with that question because they don't know me. And honestly, if I start with that, there's a good chance they're never going to get to know me. And so I think that we have to be open to the mission field. God calls us, again, in Matthew 5, we are salt, we are light. We're the only difference that some people are going to see in the world. Let's do that. Let's be around. Let's rub shoulders. Let's talk with people. Let's build relationships. Let's not forget what we're called to do in that.
Yeah, that reminds me of the passage in John here 17 where it says, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, and they also may be sanctified by the truth. It's that beautiful balance where he says, hey, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world. They need to be there. They need to be the salt. They need to be the light, but they need to also be separate. They need to be different. They need to be an influence maker, not being influenced by the world. And I think that's a beautiful example of what Jesus exactly wants us to be. He wants us to have acquaintances and people that we can influence in the world, but not to the point where we're getting influenced by the world and being won over by them.
We're all called. We're not everyone's called to be a missionary, but we're all called to spread the gospel.
Amen.
And that can happen at home. You can be while you're not a missionary who's going out into a place where there is no one you know, or I don't necessarily know all of, like, the individual things that define what a missionary is, but from what I understand a missionary is, it is someone who travels out and goes to preach to a location that doesn't have much of the word. You don't have to go out far to go talk to someone. Sometimes the people that you need to talk to are right in your inner circle. And I do want to get to some follow-up questions, because right now we're actually kind of we're like 26 minutes in.
I told you I talked a lot.
That's great.
No, it's great. Let's get some follow-up questions. These two are kind of similar, so I'm going to ask them both at the same time. How do you determine between influential friends and non-influential friends? And then also, how can a teen or young adult make those boundaries to not let non-Christians influence them? Does that make sense?
Yep. Oh, you're pointing at me.
Of course.
Well,
You're our guest, so we want you to.
I'll try to be
Spotlight.
brief. And the idea of how do I tell who's influential and not influential, I think I have to realize that everything has an influence on me. Mm-hmm. So several years ago, we started watching a TV show that I watched in the 80s growing up. And it's Full House, and there's these little girls in there, and I was like, yeah, so like my girls will enjoy this. There's all these, you got it, dude, and all these cool little things in it. Well, it was not very long before my daughter's attitudes changed, and I started seeing a disrespect come out, and nothing in our lives had changed about except for watching that show. And even though there was nothing, like nobody telling them how to talk, they just saw, I see that little girl talks to their daddy this way, and people laughed. And so they started trying it. And so I think we have to understand everybody has an influence on us. It's how much influence that we give them, or even how much we remove their influence intentionally, is going to make the big difference. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be influenced by everybody that's around me. All of my friends are going to have an influence on me. But it's how much am I going to let that affect my life? I have to now say, well, then I can't be around you too much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not that I can say, well, I'm just not going to listen to you anymore. It's, I actually have to put a distance. Mm-hmm. You know?
Okay. And I think that actually went into a little bit of the second question that we already talked about. Like, how do we set up those boundaries?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's at home, parents are a terrific resource. Church is a terrific resource in helping, do things. So like a pastor was saying, all the youth activities and stuff, saying, hey, we'll hang out at school, we'll hang out at all the youth activities we got. We can be friends at all of those places. Those are nice, good, clean lines. Mm-hmm. It's a little harder when you don't have anybody to help set up structure and authority in your life. But I think we all really know when we're spending too much time doing something, or when we're allowing something to fill our thoughts more than we should. That's where we may have to get drastic. Again, the situation I was talking with the guy last week, it was one of those things. He just, the friend felt like he had too much just open say, well, you should do it this way. Well, you don't let them tell you that. And it was one of those things that for him, we felt like it was a no. Okay, then we just can't. We need to spend some time apart. I need to spend some time with Christ, and I will be back in touch in a couple months, because that friend actually felt like they were the main influencer in this person's life, and God's word should be the main influencer in our life.
So this one's a little bit more of a personal question. I'm not going to get into names, because I think that sometimes this person listens to the podcast, but they'll probably know if I'm talking about them. But what about friends what about a friend who I personally believe I've quote unquote ruined the chance to talk to them about Christ? I've had such a long history with this friend where when I talk to basically my entire, them knowing me, they've known me for a long enough time where they've seen my growth, but they've also seen that I've come from a place where I wasn't necessarily the best person to talk to them about Christ, and I feel like I've kind of ruined that chance to talk to them. What do I do about that?
Well, I think what we can't do, and I know where you're coming from, and I know the thoughts that you're having here, but what we can't do is we can't undercut the importance of the work of the Holy Spirit in someone's life. So just because I may have done something that has hurt a friendship, that has burned a bridge, doesn't mean that person no longer has a chance to hear the gospel. And so I can't put blame on myself for things that I've done and said. And I can think of stories back to junior high where I had friends look at me and say, wow, I thought you were a Christian, but you act just like me. And it's like, oh, okay, so I guess I'm not doing what I should. But then God brings by somebody else, who is the perfect person, an evangelist that comes down, hey, they have a teen rally on Saturday, let's go to this teen rally. And then if a friend gets saved who you thought, I blew it. So you can't think that your personal work can actually demolish the ability for God to do something. Now, what's sad is sometimes we actually remove ourselves from the blessings. But we keep praying for that person. We keep looking for opportunities. And sometimes maybe it's inviting them to a place where someone else is going to be trying to introduce them to Christ, or where they're going to see Christ in somewhere else. People are people. People get hurt. People respond to hurt in different ways. And it is possible that I do something that I never have a chance to share the gospel. But that doesn't mean that I have now ruined that person's opportunity to accept Christ.
Yeah. Christ is bigger than that. Christ is bigger than our mistakes. And even if it's a relationship where we were able to say sorry, well, definitely we should definitely do that. But there's also value in seeing redemption as well, because as believers we do make mistakes. We make mistakes. We're all sinners, and we have made mistakes in the past. But it's to see how as believers we can deal with mistakes and be able to repent, to forget, to ask for forgiveness, and see God change us. It's also part of the testimony we want to give, and that can change someone as well, even if it's not immediate. But it's the little seeds, like you said, the little seeds that get planted along the way.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's a natural stopping point for this conversation. But if you listener, if you have a question regarding anything we talked about, or maybe just a new question you want to hear what we have to say based off of what the Word of God says, obviously, please submit your own question. You can submit a question at www.ibbvn.org/deeperroots. We would love to hear your questions, and thank you, Mr. John, again for the opportunity to have you on here. It's a huge blessing, and hearing both your testimony and also your advice here as well. Wonderful blessing. So thank you for being here. And also thank you, listener, for listening. And hopefully you'll be back next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Deeper Roots. If you want to submit a question, follow up on something we talked about on the podcast, or you want to find us online, you can go to our webpage, which is ibbvn.org/deeperroots. Deeper Roots is a ministry of Iglesia Bíblica Baptista Vida Nueva, which is a local church in Castro Valley, California. And you can learn more about us and our church by going to our website, ibbvn.org.